Warden is one of the strongest heroes in Clash Mini, but only if you know how to fully utilize his abilities and synergies. So let me tell you how these pro players actually use Grand Warden to climb to the top of the leaderboard. And it all starts with positioning. You need to be aware of his 3 closest allies. That's the minis that the Warden will give his shield to, well, and himself too. Ideally, these should mostly be melee units to make use of this ability, so it's like a few mini giant skeleton bombs if your melee minis get the shield. You also want to get 3 minis on the board ASAP to fully utilize the shields to get more attack increases, because the more shields that break, the more attack buffs the Warden gets. Ideally, you want the shield to break at around the same time or within a 6 seconds interval, because that's the duration of the Warden's attack buff. But if another shield breaks before the buff ends, damage is increased by 1 more and the timer also resets. That's 6 more seconds of extra damage. In terms of the Warden himself, you want to put him at the side so he can't be attacked from both sides, and also 1 tower from the back to save space for your ranged carry. This can be the Ewis, Dark Goblin, or the Magic Archer, so the Warden with the HP can protect the mini by standing in front of him. The Warden's clash ability might seem straightforward enough, but look at this placement. One of these minis isn't getting the shield, but which one? Is it A, the Swordsman, B, the Knight, or C, all the minis because Warden is busy reading his book? The answer is B. If 2 minis are at the same distance away from the Warden, he'll always cast a shield to the minis on his bottom first, and minis on his right first. That just seems right. Right? Warden works really well with the Swordsman and the Valkyrie, because after the shield breaks, the 6 damage is dealt, and the Valkyrie spin attack and the Swordsman's super can easily finish off the enemy mini, healing them back up and recharging Swordsman's super. And this also works very well with Guard, because guess what? The splash damage and the +1 damage Warden gets when the shield breaks, and the plus 25% hit speed for the shielded minis, all that, the shield doesn't have to be casted by the Warden. So the Guard himself will deal 6 damage when his shield breaks, and giving Warden the +1 damage without even getting the Warden's shield. This applies to the Knight too, because it's his first star. So it's very important that you want to make sure that you want to place Guard and the Knight far away from the Warden, so when there are more than 3 minis on the board, your Guard or Knight isn't getting the shield from the Warden, giving the Warden an additional +1 damage when the Guard or the Knight shield breaks. The Guard is even better in this scenario, because the 2nd and the 3rd star can grant shield to the other minis, so this can potentially be 2 more of the 6 damage splash and 2 extra damage for the Warden. So this is so much value. Guard is basically a must use with the Warden. Another great synergy is with the Miner or Prince. The shield they get is very useful to tank damage when they reach the backline, so they can deal more damage there, and the 6 damage when the shield breaks is also very helpful against the backline minis. The Royal Ghost also works great here, because the shield can be very helpful, so he can tank the bit more damage when he's stunned or slowed, giving him the extra health to go invisible again and finish off the enemies. In terms of the tiles, the Warden is busted on the Devil's Deal, because the -80% HP isn't as impactful when you also have the shield to protect you, and the +1 damage is even more busted with the +25% attack speed the Warden gets with the shield. And that's why he's so good on the curse tile too, because you will be affected less than the enemy because you got a shield. He's also amazing on the mirror tile, because the Wardens will cast each other the shields, so they both get 20 shield each. That gives the mirrored Warden so much protection, and because of that, I would try to get Warden on mirror no matter what, even if the mirror tile is at the front. And one thing to keep in mind though, a mini on a jump tile will never get the Warden shield, so if you're considering a strategy surrounding that, it wouldn't work. And for the people who don't have enough shards to max them out, you have to get at least this skill upgrade, so the Warden will give 3 mini shield instead of 2, and also you have to get Warden to level 12 to get this skill upgrade, which will turn Warden from just a support unit to a damage dealer, sometimes getting 7 or 8 damage per hit if you use the Guard and the Knight. But just because the Warden is strong doesn't mean he doesn't have his counters. Magic Archer can be a big problem, especially with the Archer Queen Invisible or the Barking Super. Once he gets a kill, it's just a monster machine, so you have to make sure that he doesn't pierce your ranged minis. The Valkyrie first star and Dark Goblin third star is also a big problem. They will just shred through your shields, so your best bet to deal with that is go with the stuns like the Mega Knight and Ewiz. All the pro tips that I covered will help a lot, but of course you can't use them without a deck. Here is a Dark Goblin deck. This is especially good against Archer Queens. Here is an Ewiz deck. Use this when the Meritau is in rotation. And here is a Magic Archer deck. This is probably the most consistent Warden deck, and no, don't show that. I don't want anyone playing that deck. It's too toxic, no. All 4 of these are used by the best Warden players. Another super important thing to win with Warden is that you need to know his interactions against every hero, so you know exactly what fights you'll win and lose. So here's the video of him against every single hero.